and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Good morning. Director McLaren?
Here.
Director Hernandez?
Here.
Director Calandri?
Here.
Director Urasic?
Here.
Director Paris?
Here.
Angel Fitzpatrick?
Here.
Arden Wells?
Here.
And Craig Parton?
Here.
And Cameron Goodwin.
Good. Cameron Good.
I don't know why I can't get your name right, Cameron. I'm sorry. Everyone's here.
Thank you, Patty. Adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
Can I make a request on the agenda that number 11, the carryover storage agreements discussion, which may be lengthy, be put after General Counsel's report?
Yes, we can, and that will be in our motion to adopt the agenda.
Right.
Is that what you're going to move, Kathy?
Move the adoption of the agenda as amended.
Motion made and second to adopt the agenda with the understanding that item 11 will be put on at the end of the meeting before closed session. Any discussion? Any discussion from the public? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to adopt the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Public comments or non-agenda items? Anybody? Well, I have some exciting news that I'm going to have Matt come up and talk about with some changes to our Watermaster group. So go ahead, Matt.
All right. Thank you. Matt Knudsen. I'm General Manager for AVAC. And Peter Thompson, as you know, has been the Assistant GM for AVAC for a few years now. Also served as the Administrator for the Watermaster. He's taken a new position, and so he'll be leaving the agency first part of February. So we're very happy for Pete. It's a great opportunity for him. He's done a great job both for AVAC and the Watermaster. But you know, I think we've done a good job of having a succession plan. And Angel Fitzpatrick is going to resume that role of administrator. And then we've recently hired Kyle Wright, or promoted Kyle Wright to a water resource planner for the agency. And I'll let Kyle introduce himself. He's been with the agency for about 14 years or so.
Hey, Kyle, we're going to put you on the spot. You come up with Matt, stand next to him, and you can introduce yourself to us. This is part of the test we give, so.
We have to stand next to each other.
Follow with that, Matt.
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, Kyle Wright. I've been with the agency, like Matt said, about going on 14 years now. I started back in 2012, shortly after completing my bachelor's in ag business at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo.
Well, you're a good guy if you went to Cal Poly, so great.
Go Mustangs. So yeah, I started out at as an operator trainee at our Roseman treatment plant. Spent quite a few years out there. Moved to the East Side plant. The superintendent there for a while, and went to the Quartz Hill treatment plant. Spent about 2.5 years there as superintendent, and back in April made the transfer over to Water Resources. So happy to be on the staff here and look forward to the future.
Well, Kyle, your assignment is learn the judgment as well as Angel knows it, and you will have no problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like reading.
Yeah.
Well, welcome aboard, Kyle. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
And Matt, can you tell us where Peter's going to go?
He's going to take
Recording in progress.
general manager position, or what they call executive director for Central Coast Water Authority.
Great.
They
Wow.
serve they're a state water contractor, and they serve the area basically from like Santa Barbara County up to Santa Maria.
Outstanding.
So it'll be a good opportunity for him. He'll do a great job.
Yeah, and from the AVAC perspective, Peter has been a was a great addition to us and has done a great job for us and Watermaster and also the state water contractors.
For us too.
Yeah.
Palmdale trained him very well. Thank you, Dennis. And
And these, I'm gonna be finding out.
Yeah, I
we're
think
gonna
some
be
of that's
missing
kind of-
Amanda.
Pete will be at the January Watermaster meeting to say his goodbyes.
Okay.
Correct?
Who would ever want to trade Lancaster for Santa Barbara?
thanks a lot.
Yeah,
I
thank
sure
you.
appreciate that. Any other public comments for non-agenda items? Okay, now we're on the consent agenda, financial report, payment of bills, and minutes. Angel.
You guys hear me?
Now we can.
Thank you. The consent agenda, the financial report monthly ending November 2025 is on page 3 of your agenda. Payment of bills through December 4th, 2025 starts on page 19 of your agenda. And the minutes of the October 22nd, 2025 board meeting start on page 34 of your agenda packet. Staff has nothing special to request, but happy to answer any questions.
Great. Bree, so we still have money and everything's good? Okay, that's all I need to hear. Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? If there are none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Motion made by Brandon, seconded by Derek. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve the consent agenda, say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion's carried unanimously. We're now on item 7, advisory committee report. Dennis?
Dennis Lamro from the advisory committee. We're coming up on 10 years worth of the memo speaking for itself.
That's incredible.
I think the only thing I'd like to point out, aside from the comments on the conversion from carryover to storage, is we had a discussion about how material injury analysis are conducted, and we would like to see maybe a workshop on that, either at a committee meeting or at a board meeting with the engineer to get a little more detail on how that's done.
You want that at the advisory committee at our board meeting, or what was the recommendation?
Well, I think the advisory committee would like that, but it'd be up to the board as to how you wanted to do that.
Okay,
Because that would be probably an extra cost from the engineer.
I had listened into the advisory committee and I agree with that. I think
I think it's a great idea, and if we can all pull it off at one, that would be great.
yeah, I think to save funds and maybe, well, we'll talk about it. What's your thoughts about bringing Arden down for that? And we'll present it and then invite the advisory committee to either January or February meeting.
Sounds good.
It's perfect timing.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Then, Patty, could you put that on for a future agenda item? And Angel, if you discuss that with Arden and figure out the timing for it, and then make sure we invite the advisory committee to that meeting.
Okay.
Would you
To
agree?
be clear, Rob, so Arden will give the presentation at the board meeting and advisory would attend there?
Well, no, we will still do the advisory committee, but we will make sure when we do have it scheduled, either January or February meeting, that's up to what you feel is the best. We will make sure we invite the advisory committee to listen in or attend our board meeting, and rather than duplicate
Okay,
the presentation.
sounds good.
I think. Everybody good with that? Okay, Dennis, good report. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Rob, did you want this as a special
No.
workshop or along with the regular board meeting?
I think along with the regular
Regular
board,
board meeting?
that's okay with everybody. That way we just trying to be there.
Yeah, I think we should hear a little bit more on that item and then determine if there's also a need for the ad hoc committee to meet prior to that, or if there's other needs in addition to the meeting that we have.
To that, okay.
Yeah.
Good. Any other discussion?
This is Arden, just confirming that
Oh, hi,
works
Arden.
with us. Yes.
We're talking about you and we didn't even let you come in. Go ahead.
Yeah, just confirming that works with us. And you had mentioned, is this something that you would want me to be in person for?
If possible, so we'll obviously, I know you have things coming up, so we'll certainly work around your schedule for that.
Okay, I'll coordinate with admin staff, but that's possible for an early in the year meeting, definitely.
Yeah, we could do January, February, or whatever works out for you. Okay,
Sounds good. Thanks. Looking forward to it.
great. Thank you, Arden. Okay, that brings us to item 8, consideration possible action approving the proposed 2026 administrative assessment rate and draft administrative budget. And we start with item A, B, and C, and who's going to do that presentation?
Bob, I'll take this. Thank you.
Good.
The 2026 administrative assessment will be set at $9.50. The estimated total revenue is a little over $1 million, and the estimated total expense is about $800,000. This is an estimated increase to the stabilization fund of about $225,000. Given this, staff and the advisory committee recommend that the board adopt resolution R2561, approving the 2026 administrative rate and the administrative assessment of $9. I'm sorry, the administrative assessment rate of $9.50 in the 2026 budget. Happy to answer any questions.
Do you know, or does Teresa know what our current stabilization fund is right now?
Teresa, do you have that number?
Good morning.
Teresa?
Okay, so at the end of 2024, the administrative stabilization fund balance was $327,999. I'm currently going through the process of reconciling the 2025 year. So when the financial statements are presented in January for December, I'll have that final balance.
Do we have any type of rough estimate? And I know you hate to give rough estimates.
Yeah, I don't want to give that because I'm reconciling it. So I
Okay.
would prefer to wait till January if you're okay with that.
I think we can be patient.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. And at our AVAC meeting, we always discuss what direction I'm going to be given for these meetings, as I know you guys have different meetings to do the same. And one thing that was suggested at our AVAC meeting is that we start thinking about developing a reserve policy. Like at what point, how much reserve are we going to need? What are we going to use it for? And also discussion as we build up a reserve. There's obviously things that we haven't been able to do. And one thing I would highlight and came up in the AVAC meeting is enforcement. Other things, maybe the Watermaster engineer might recommend to us. So if I can get consensus, I would like to, at our next meeting or February meeting, put on let's have a discussion about a reserve policy. And I'd like staff to lead that discussion and have some brainstorming ideas for us, and maybe what, at some point, what will we do with our reserve? What do we need it for? How long of reserve do we need? All those type of things. Would that be okay? And any other suggestions?
Couple comments. So I'd say maybe this is one time smart minds think alike. I had that same comment. So I think staff would be good because, what I wrote down is what a, target balance is considered prudent. So I think that's right. I think the other point is based upon that is considering when we start reducing assessments if possible.
Right.
And, that feedback is, I think it's important that I appreciate staff and standing advisory committee is really thinking about from a landowner's perspective, cost predictability is very important. So knowing that it's consistent, preparing for that helps, every landowner and every farming operator to know what their costs are going into that season and how to manage it. So it's very important for us to get ahead of that and do some strategic planning on that, as you suggest.
Yep, I agree. Carolyn, anybody? Everybody? Good consensus? Angel, work with Patty on putting that on the agenda and maybe working with Craig and Arden and brainstorming some ideas for us.
It's good. Will do. Thank you.
That'd be great. So that means we're on to taking action on R2561, approving the 2026 administrative budget and assessment rate. Is there a motion to approve resolution R2561?
So moved.
Motion made by Kathy. Second by Brandon. Is there any further discussion? Any public discussion? Are you good with this, Julie? Okay. All in favor of the motion to approve resolution R2561, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion is carried unanimously. We're on number 9, authorizing specified individuals to transact business with Citizens Bank. Angel, you want to present that?
Yes, thank you, Rob. With the recent transition of staff, the Watermaster needs to change the check signers on the Citizens Business Bank account. The current check signers are myself and P. And we would like it to be myself and Kyle Wright. And with that, staff and the advisory committee recommend that the board adopt resolution R2564, authorizing specified individuals to transact business with Citizens Bank.
And this is consistently, we've always had, this is after it's approved by the board and all that, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Kyle, you graduated from Cal Poly, you have to be an honest guy. Any discussion?
Just a question. I think we discussed this, kind of when all the banking crisis happened 3 or 4 years ago. But now that our stabilization fund and our checking accounts getting higher, and do we have a sweep account in there just to make sure we're protected by FDIC and being able to, if you're familiar, I can follow up with you, just making sure that we can sweep out and have none of these accounts are over $250,000.
Derek, I do believe staff plans to provide investment options at the January meeting.
Okay.
So.
Including that'd be great.
Okay, thank you.
And obviously the discussion of a sweep account and what interest rates we can get on it and all of that. And I know Teresa's been diligently working on that for AVEC, so she's going to have some really good ideas, right? Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing no other discussion, is there a motion to approve resolution R2564, authorizing the individuals as discussed to transact business with Citizens Business Bank?
I'll make a motion.
Motion made by Derek. Second by Brandon. Is there any further discussion? Any public discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion to approve resolution R2564, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. We're now on item 10, review of 2026 fee schedule and public hearing. I need to have a motion to open the public hearing. Is that correct?
Rob, we're actually just setting a date for a public hearing this meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's why I need you, Angel. I appreciate that. So we need to set a date for the public hearing. And do you have some?
I believe Arden's on the line and she has information to present on her fee changes to the fee schedule.
Got it.
Yes, hi. So we provided in the board packet a brief memo summarizing the changes that we have in the fee schedule and also a table that walks through our stats for this past year regarding what applications came in, what the fees were, and the average and maximum equivalent of time and materials with the Watermaster rates that we spent on each application. A few big changes that I want to highlight are a couple types of applications became time, we recommend that they become time and materials instead of fee-based. In particular, the new point of extraction applications for more than 10 acre feet per year. We found that we spent more time on the ones that came in this year because they were larger for a proposed volume pumped than typical. And also we have seen a trend of more transfers being used for investment purposes or not having a point of extraction identified. And then the actual material injury analysis occurs with a subsequent point of extraction application, sometimes for larger volumes. And so by having it time and materials, the applicant would submit a retainer, but then only pay for the time and materials that or the time that we spend on that specific application. Similarly, on the other end, we noted that for one-time transfers between 100 and 500 acre feet or permanent transfers between 10 and 100 acre feet per year, we actually spent less money per application than we have in previous years for these ranges. And this is because this year, the applications in general were very similar or repeat transfers for parties. And we were able to look at work that we had done previously and only update it instead of writing a new letter and doing a new analysis from scratch. And so we're also recommending that this becomes time and materials based with the anticipation that there may be applications where the actual time spent on it is much lower than the current fee is for. We have some small increases that we propose. The
Arden?
biggest,
Arden?
yes.
Yeah, this is Rob. Can you just give us some examples of those where you think it would be lower and you just want to charge the time on those?
Yes. So I need to double check the notes, but I believe that the Meritorina to Metler Valley application was under this area. And this is an application that comes in just about every year.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Rob, can I also add something here?
Please, Angel.
Admin staff currently reviews all small pumper qualifying documentation applications as well as replacement well applications and the monitoring well applications. Admin staff does not plan to change our fees. We also collect $150 from each of Arden's applications for a processing fee, and we do not plan to change our fees.
Okay, great. Good comment. Go ahead, Arden.
Other changes include a modest fee increase for small pumpers, new points of extraction applications. And we did spend more time this past year on these applications that came in than the proposed fee is for. But we get these applications very infrequently, and we don't want to have a huge increase in the rate for these, given that it's existing well owners who just want to have a new well on their property, often because has issues or they've been sharing the well. I noted that in the advisory committee, there were comments questioning why this was not increased more. In general, we try to have the rates so that overall, some of the more simple straightforward applications can help balance out the ones where more questions and information come up for them. And the particular applications this year had a bit more detail and back and forth, just due to the specific situations. And that, oh yeah, there's some also a fee increase for new production applications. We found this is the main category where we were spending about 2 hours more on each one than our current budget was for. So are there any questions?
Questions, board?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Arden, so if someone were to go in on these associated with time and materials, does Watermaster Engineer give them an estimate?
We set a retainer, which typically that is more than we anticipate using. Sometimes it is less. We can provide, we don't currently give an estimate based on the application details, but we can do that.
So I guess when you say retainer, do you mean in your table where you put deposit?
Yes.
Are they one and the same?
Yes.
Okay, so you're suggesting that the deposit indicated on the table is typically greater than what you anticipate in time and materials?
For most applications.
Okay. Yeah, I think it would be helpful to those applying, particularly on time and materials, to be able to have an estimate from the Watermaster Engineer.
Mm-hmm.
That's my opinion.
Thank you.
Okay. Arden, I had a question. And I know we've had situations past where somebody has overpumped and instead of coming and getting replacement water, they do an exchange of carryover water. Where does that come in on the fee schedule and what is the cost for that?
So that comes in under transfers, and that is, unless it's transferring water from one area to, say, use the production at the same parcel where it originates, that's going to be based on the volume for the transfers.
And what analysis goes into that? And
so in that analysis, we are looking at making sure that the party that has been producing more than its production right and needs the replacement water assessment, we're making sure that they are not significantly drawing down nearby groundwater. So we're looking at nearby water levels. We're reviewing who are the nearby parties to that well.
And then when the Watermaster supplies the replacement water, which would be AVAC, Palmdale, or Little Rock, depending on the area, is there any fee or transfer fee on that type of transaction?
No, so that is typically handled as a deduction from the stored water totals, and that's shown in Appendix C of the annual reports. So AVEC and the state water contractors keep track of the total volume that is deducted for replacement water assessments. And then I work with AVEC to make sure that all of the accounting is in order.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then my second question is on when there's a party who has carryover and transfers carryover to another party as investors, is that the same analysis? Or what analysis do you make on that? Because there's no material injury until that water's drawn. Is that accurate?
Yes, so for that falls under transfer, no point of extraction identified, or property transfer. And so those are the $1,500 applications. And so we're not doing a material injury analysis for those, but the time that goes into that is making sure we have all of the details correct, creating, if applicable, a map of where the parties are, just to set the stage to understand who is where. And then we're also making sure that we update the databases and have the time to prepare and present it to the board.
Got it. Understood. And then when eventually that water is sold and there's going to be a point of extraction, there's another transfer, and then you do the material injury?
There's a new point of extraction application. And that's when we do the material injury analysis. And that's why sometimes those take longer than the transfers.
Understood. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the public, from the board? Now we need to set a date for public hearing. Is that correct, Angel?
Yes, that is correct.
And you
And
have a recommendation of when?
January 28th, the January board meeting,
January
28th,
28th?
the next board
Our
meeting.
next board meeting?
Mhm.
Okay. Is there a motion to set a public hearing regarding our proposed 2026 fee schedule?
So my question would be that included in the fee schedule, do I need to make a motion to ensure that the Watermaster engineer, it's noted that they provide an estimate on the
So Patty, do you get that motion that we're setting a public hearing for January 28th? And one of the items is to provide an estimate. Okay, great. Is there a second to that
Second.
motion? Second by Brandon. Is there any discussion? Any public discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion to set the public hearing? And included in that will be a discussion about the estimate for the people doing the transfers. For January 28th, all in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion's carried unanimously. We have moved 11 to under 15 or right before closed session. Now we're on 12, consideration possible action on transfer applications. And that's going to be Arden or Maureen.
Hi. All right. So the two transfer applications that we have today are, one is a transfer from AVEC to City of Palmdale, and the other is a transfer from Calandry Farms to Palmdale Water District. Yes.
Arden,
Mhm.
although he doesn't need to, Brandon wants to recuse himself from item B. So before you go into item B, why don't you do A first and then we'll do that. And then who is your alternate on?
Angelica.
And Halleck, are you on the line?
Yes, good morning.
Okay, good morning, welcome. We're gonna go through item A. Brandon's gonna recuse himself. He'll walk out. You will do the vote on that. And then Brandon will walk back in and we appreciate your service.
Thank
So,
you.
go ahead, Arden, on A.
All right, so for item A, this is a transfer from AVEC to City of Palmdale of 1,134 acre feet of carryover water. And City of Palmdale does not have a production right, but is a party identified in the judgment. And so I did have some conversations with council, making sure that they can receive this transfer, and they can. And we have some notes about where and how we will document their production right in the annual reports. But they can receive and use carryover water, though they don't currently have a point of extraction. So we could not conduct a material injury analysis because there isn't a point of extraction for City of Palmdale. And this was unanimously recommended for approval by the advisory committee. Any questions?
Any questions? Public, board?
Just Just a quick question. I didn't get into the detail of it, but is there an identification of where that water is coming from, that the transfer is? What portion of the basin?
Pardon?
Not in this application, no.
Where's AVAC's water originating from that they're transferring? I think is what Derek's asking. Isn't that the west side?
I see. They have wells in several sub areas within the basin. I'm pulling up the.
My
I think
question
we
is not
see-
where the wells are, but where the
Where's the
water is
carryover
coming
coming
from.
from?
Where the carryover is coming from.
Matt, do you want to come up and? Thanks.
I think I know where Palmdale's are, so I'm just trying to.
But it's not Palmdale Water District, it's
City of Palmdale.
City of Palmdale, yeah.
But
Matt Knutson, General Manager for AVAC. So AVAC has some production rights. So this carryover water, we're transferring is the oldest carryover water. So it's from 2016 unused production rights and imported water return flows that AVAC gets. Does that answer your question, Director?
I think it covers where it's coming from, but actually,
Physically
coming from.
So the imported water return flows that AVAC gets, a lion's share of those comes from Edwards Air Force Base because imported water that we supply to Edwards not being on Exhibit 8 of getting return flows, therefore AVAC gets those return flows. So that's where lion's share of the return flows come from. The production rights originated from the property that we purchased from Clandry and the wells associated with on that property, as well as Bench Ranch and some other locations.
So the majority of it's the west sub area basin.
Yeah, a combination of the west Antelope sub basin, and then a little bit of the west central basin or central sub area.
And I guess my point is, I know we're going to have a workshop on this. I think these are some of the questions that we ask, when material injury comes up, is where that historical water is coming from, where it's going. And
Exactly.
I think just Artem, for your, these are the things that would be helpful for me to understand as you dig into this, is how you're analyzing that.
Thank you. And we have a map in the application, figure 1, which shows the locations of AVAC's wells as Matt described.
Thank you.
No, we need to vote on this one. Is there a motion to approve resolution R-2562?
So moved.
Motion made by Brandon,
Second.
second by Carolina. She hasn't done one yet, and it was like a tie. So it's Carolina. Is there any further discussion by the board, by the public? Hearing none, all in favor of approving resolution R-2562, the transfer from AVAC to the City of Palmdale, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. We're now on R-25. I will excuse Brandon and Helika, you're on board, correct?
Yes, I am.
Great. Okay, now we're on R-2563, Calandry Farms Inc. to Palmdale Water District. Go ahead, Arden.
All right, thank you. So this is a transfer for 150 acre feet per year of permanent production rights from Calandry Farms to Palmdale Water District. So Calandry Farms has wells in the central Antelope subarea, and Palmdale Water District has wells also in the central Antelope subarea. And so for the material injury analysis, we needed to have a sense of how will this water be used? What will the distribution among PWD's wells look like? So after talking with PWD, the assumption is that this 150 acre feet per year would be sort of dispersed within all of the wells, averaging out to about 6.5 acre feet per year increase in production. So we wanted to look at what are water levels doing near Palmdale Water District wells, who are they nearby, and are they in areas that have a risk of subsidence? And so I think The big takeaway from the analysis is first that Palmdale Water District's wells aren't overlying those thick clay layers, and there hasn't been past subsidence observed as expected geologically beneath their wells. And so, but in several of the parcels where the Calandry farm wells are located, where this transfer originates, these are in areas that have a risk of subsidence. So this transfer is moving water from an area with a risk of subsidence to an area with a very low risk of subsidence. When we look at water levels in Palmdale Water District wells, we got PWD's permission to use the readings from their wells in this application. And we show in figure two different clusters of PWD wells. In the north, we see net stable water levels since 2016. Water levels might decrease a little bit during dry periods when there's more pumping, and then increase during the wet years when there's less pumping. There is a cone of depression where these northern wells are located, but overall water levels are stable. In the southeast area, we see overall increasing trends. There are some wells that had water levels decreasing a little bit, and others that have increased over time. And we note that some of those wells are receiving clear benefits from recharge in Little Rock Creek. And then the last item that we looked at is the location of nearby wells. And Palmdale Water District's wells occur generally in clusters with other PWD wells. So any nearby impacts from the net increase in production is really going to be felt by the PWD wells themselves and not small pumpers or neighbors. So we found that the risk of material injury is negligible, and this was recommended for approval by the advisory committee. Any questions?
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? If not, is there a motion to approve R 2563, the transfer from Calandry Farms to Palmdale Water District?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Derek. And Alika, you want to second that motion so you get on the minute?
I'll second. Yes.
Okay. Second by Angelica. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve resolution R 2563, say aye.
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 Oh, thank you, Kathy. This has to be by roll call because Angelica is not here. So we will revote. All in favor of that motion to approve R 2563 by roll call.
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Hernandez,
Yes.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Director Urasic,
Yes.
and Director Paris.
Yes, motion carries unanimously. Takes a village to run these meetings. Thank you.
It does.
Number 13, administrators report, new production application revision. Angel,
Thank you, Rob.
why don't we let Kyle do this one since he's new? No,
I think he has the information. Okay, so staff was directed at the last board meeting to ensure that new producers are aware that approved new production is not permanent.
I'm sorry, we didn't.
Oh.
Brandon back. Come on back, Brandon.
Mhm.
And Angelica, Brandon's now in his seat, so thank you. Go ahead, Angel.
My pleasure.
Start over.
I'll start over. At the last board meeting, staff was directed to ensure that new producers are aware that new production is not a permanent source of water and that their rights may be reduced or revoked if the Watermaster determines that there's not sufficient imported water available to replace that production. I did talk with legal counsel and they did make me aware that there was an update to the rules and regulations in section 14 that was approved about 2 years ago. And it was regarding the limitations on all new production contingent upon the availability of the imported water. I did add that wording, or actually Kyle added that wording to the new production application. Holly, can you just go 2 slides, one more? And just so you can see, it's under the signature line. So the new production application now has that wording. Any questions on that before we move on?
Any questions, anybody? Okay.
Okay,
Okay,
Holly.
Angel.
Holly, next slide. I was going to ask the board for consensus for Arden to present to the advisory committee in January for the material injury, but we already took care of that. So Holly, can you go to the next slide? Okay, and this is our Outlook calendar for November, December. Staff worked on the new production application update. We also reviewed the 2026 fee schedule for possible changes with the engineer. We approved the administrative rate and the administrative budget. In January, we plan to prepare and mail the fixed invoices and also mail and email the 2025 production report forms to all producers. We'll have our public hearing to consider the fee schedule in January. And we also plan to present investment options to the board. And lastly, we plan to approve the 2026 replacement water rate.
Great.
Yep. And that's all I have. That concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. And that brings us to item 14, Watermaster Engineers Report. Arden?
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen quickly, and we have a pretty short report today. Okay. All right, can y'all see this?
Yes.
Excellent. So
Can
Could you make it a little
you
bigger?
make that a little bigger? Or, I mean, we see it, it's in our packet, so that's, I think it's in our packet. It is, yeah.
okay, yes, well, I don't know how to make it bigger, but this is our summary of new production and qualified small pumpers. 5.75 acre feet per year were approved in October. Are there any questions about this?
Any questions to the summary of new production qualified small pumpers? From the public? Nope, we're good. Thank you.
Great. And then our other item is just a brief update on the reporting app. We met with AVEC admin staff to discuss implementation and onboarding. We're still working on a few little tweaks and finalizing the user guide. But our next step is to get a copy to Kyle at AVEC so he can start seeing how it works with AVEC's data. And then we'll be selecting a small group of parties to have onboarding trial users early in 2026. So any questions on this?
Julie, are you raising your hand to volunteer? Okay.
So moved.
Any questions? Okay, hearing none. Good.
All right.
I do have a question for Cal. Do we assume that we're going to AVEC on our stuff's going to test out this app, and is that the plan?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I receive data every month from all our wells, and I will cross-reference with our current software with the Watermaster app and make sure everything is jiving correctly.
Okay, and who would be the best position if we need to for landowners and anybody who's interested to put on some type of training for this by Zoom or in person? Would that be Arden? Would that be your group, or could our staff do it once, our Watermaster staff do it once we get to it? I don't know.
Yes, for onboarding, it'll be the Watermaster staff.
Okay, good. So that's perfect.
Yeah, we'll get together and find a good group to we can kind of pilot this with.
Super. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And does that conclude the Arden show, Arden?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we're on general counsel's report.
Yes, I'd like to start by reminding the board what they were told on Monday, that we got a decision in the Zermalza case that has been actively litigated since 2018. And the trial court's order in behalf of the Watermaster was affirmed on all grounds, a 3-0 decision, and further discussion will occur in closed session. But a copy of the opinion should be put on our website.
And Craig, when we get a judgment like that, we're allowed to pursue our attorney fees on what we did.
We're going to pursue, yes.
And
We'll
we'll have that
discuss-
discussion
Yeah.
in closed session.
Yes.
Okay. And since the public's here, and I mean, this is an important decision. I recall that your firm reached out several times to try to mediate this at the very beginning. Is that
Yeah.
what happened?
It has a long history of efforts to try to avoid litigation, but we went through the trial court, we went to the Court of Appeal, and we made every effort to try and resolve it short of this result today for the Zermalza.
And I know if you could just give a little description of multiple attorneys have worked on this with us, is that right? And could you say a
Right,
little bit about that?
we had briefs from the public purveyors, submitted a brief. We consulted with a number of other attorneys through the process, and couldn't ask for a better result for the Watermaster.
And I think since the public's listening and they're here, can you just give a quick summary? My understanding, this affirmed our prior judgment and everything that we've been doing for the last several years. And what is, if there's a lesson to be drawn from this decision, what would that be?
I think the lesson is that if you're drawing water from the adjudicated basin, you need to participate on a fair basis. And you will be brought under the judgment's jurisdiction, and we will be made whole for the efforts we made as a Watermaster to rectify the fact that we received no replacement water assessments, payments, or other payments from these parties, and haven't for years. So in terms of equity and fairness, I think it's a substantial opinion.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. One thing the public, I think, needs to realize is if they don't have water rights in our basin and they're pumping, eventually the Watermaster will get to you. We're kind of prioritizing the larger cases where people are using more water first. But if you don't have production rights using water, there's rules you need to follow to be able to use water, but you have to pay for that water. And if you don't, these type of things can happen. And again, this was a case where the Watermaster attorney and the board tried to mediate, tried to work with the landowner, tried to discourage litigation, and that's what we've always done. But this is an important decision for us, and it was a joint decision by the landowner attorneys, water producer attorneys, all the attorneys, and our own attorney worked on this case. So just thank you for a very good outcome and all the hard work you guys did on this.
Thank you. Rancho Sierra Properties There was some discussion at the board meeting in October about allocation of the roughly $150,000 recovery we got via the city of Lancaster and the three-way deal that we did. The board, if needs to allocate, we can give you a specific number as to the attorney's fees. There weren't significant attorney's fees in the motion, the limited motion we brought, but the attorney's fees incurred for all the negotiations and the efforts to settle the case are substantial. So if the board wants a percentage or a number, I can give either one to them. Yeah.
A number.
$65,000
Okay.
attorney's fees.
And then, is this a closed session item or? Is this
No,
what can we discuss?
this I believe is open session. It's not closed session.
So we can discuss about how we want that allocated and get public input.
Right.
Okay. And one thing, this property was sold based upon an independent appraisal of the value of the property. And you want to go through that a little bit?
Yeah, and that was part of the cost process, was working with what we thought was an easy situation, dealing with one party, turned into a three-way deal with, fortunately, the city of Lancaster coming forward and wanting to acquire the property. But it took the appraisal process and other legally intensive discussions to pull it off. So the question is, the allocation you want to make is certainly justified by the amount of legal fees indicated, and then presumably the remainder, or much of the remainder, would go to replacement water assessments.
Right. Okay, so do we have to take any action on that?
No, if you want to ask for any public input on it, you can.
Okay. Public input on that discussion? Julie? Why don't you come up and I just want to make sure we have, Julie Kyle is at the speaker. Go ahead, Julie.
I was just curious, are there other costs that have been incurred with this whole situation other than our attorney? I would think so.
There are costs, about $5,000 of extra costs related to the getting the appraisal, related to out-of-pocket expenses that the Watermaster has paid. So I can give you more detail on that.
I'm sorry.
I don't think so. I think we know that
Yeah.
there's an amalgamation of
Yeah.
costs associated with appraisals
Right.
and stuff. So we would reduce that.
I'm of the opinion we recover all our hard costs. What's left over goes to RWH. Or the replacement water.
I agree with that, and I know Galen would, and I'm sure many others on the advisory,
I
but
mean, what do you think there? I agree.
Yeah, I think that's the consensus, Julie, that everything the Watermaster that came out of our budget gets paid back to our budget, and then
Right.
the rest would go to replacement.
that just seems like the equitable answer and pretty clear cut.
Yeah, just wanted to make sure it was real clear to everybody, and I thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Great, thanks, Julie. Good.
Okay. I'd like to discuss the carryover question when we go to number 11, which is carryover in general. So I have nothing further to report.
Okay. Anybody need a short break, or we're ready?
Short break would be nice, but before we do that, I mean, it says discussion to satisfy replacement obligation. Isn't that a little different than what we're going into in number 11?
I don't have anything to add on what that topic
Oh,
is
okay.
supposed to cover. Yeah, would rather we have the general discussion about carryover and storage agreements and whatever impact they might have on replacement water obligations.
Okay, so I think this discussion is going to take a little bit of time, so why don't we take a 5-minute break and restroom break and anything you need, and then get back here. That would be 11:11. Thank you. 11:11. We're going to go to lunch.
Oh, sorry, I thought you guys had. I thought, yeah, okay. I know we're building. Oh, thank you. Okay, well, then I'll use it, I can print my fees if it had a. All right, well, that's what I was thinking, is if you have a problem with costs, you can see if they're on.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Justin's probably the person. Yeah. Okay.
And go see if he's over there. His office.
Okay, well, and, right, so I'm just going to do, and you'll be my lawyer in case I get in trouble. Yeah.
You sweater, Holly.
I didn't hear from Drew and I didn't hear.
So I'm assuming. Because things just not coming out, but luckily you get that. Hear something.
Yeah, I'd say it was canceled. Didn't hear back. Sure.
Yeah, so we can try. Let's just try like putting something else on the screen. And then trying to put something else back. Sometimes it works.
Yeah, you're on. Hey, Barbara, how are you
I was like, I don't like getting the meeting first.
The president, she didn't have a plan. Yes.
Yeah, in order to like repower it, you gotta take off the back.
Oh.
James was perfect. And I just changed it, but something different and put that. It still was made. And so.
So helpful. Yeah. Oh, no.
That is going well.
Thank you for asking.
Yeah, I didn't realize you have.
It's cool.
Yeah, it is. Spaceship. Yeah.
Back to order, everybody. Thank you. We're now on item 11, General Counsel Memorandum and Draft Template. Craig, I'll let you lead this whole discussion.
Thank you.
I'm staying out of it.
Well, we start with our memo and draft template on page 61, which has gotten a strong reaction from a number of quarters. And we've responded to that. We've had conversations. I was not at the last board meeting or advisory committee meeting, but Cameron was. So I dragged him along for the opportunity to express our views clearly and the other folks' views clearly. That template is been slightly amended from the last time you saw it, but it still, I'm sure, has some things that we want to amend again and hopefully have a conversation about it, certainly at the January board meeting. The advisory committee report and comments are on page 70. And again, like the comments from the Los Angeles County Water Works, there is a lot of questioning about the material injury analysis, whether it needs to be done at all. How is it done? And when is it done? Is it done at the application stage or at the extraction stage? And those positions are laid out in both Stan Powell's memorandum on page 75 and the LA County Water Works comments on page 90. I hope you've had a chance to look over all these, but it's a substantial pile of paper. And it's not light reading. I don't mean to insult Stan Powell, but he did not win the Nobel Prize for literature. He wasn't trying to obtain it. It's clear but detailed, and it's important to respond to. And the Watermaster General Counsel has had conversations with Stan and have been very productive and helpful. And I think we're going down a road of cooperation to try to get to a solution without involving a court in arbitrating warring factions over the terms of the storage agreement for carryover water. I'm going to ask Cameron to comment on the memo we did, where discussions are. He was in the discussion with Stan, and hopefully Stan is on the line and can respond to anything. And then we got the letter from LA Waterworks, I believe on, I want to say Friday or Monday. So there's comments there. So I'll ask Cameron to weigh in with where things were and what kind of structure might be helpful for us to adopt to get to a solution in terms of the storage agreement.
Thank you, Craig, Chair Paris of Directors. So there, you saw the comments, or hopefully read through the comments that Stan Powell submitted, and those align largely with the more brief comments that you received from the advisory committee on the template. One of the fundamental issues is the nature and criteria or scope of the material injury analysis that was alluded to in General Counsel's memorandum to incorporate considerations related to overdraft. And after a long discussion that included Mr. Powell and the administrator and the engineer, it seems to me that we've come to a consensus, and Arden and Maureen can correct me if I'm wrong, that any material injury analysis that would be included in a carryover storage agreement would not include those overdraft considerations, but the engineer still believes that those are important considerations to be aware of as background, but that any material injury analysis would focus on what material injury analyses currently focus on, which are localized present impacts. So that's one issue that, if there's a consensus on that, and assuming the engineer doesn't disagree with how I've characterized that, I think is relatively easily addressed. A secondary, but almost equally as important question is whether a material injury analysis is appropriate in the context of a carryover storage agreement. And as you can see in the General Counsel's memorandum and the template storage agreement, and as you can see in Stan Powell's commentary, we do believe a material injury analysis is appropriate for carryover storage agreements. But there, I believe, is some disagreement on that, especially with respect to the public water suppliers. Putting that issue to the side just for a moment, the question of when a material injury analysis would occur, if it were to occur with a carryover storage agreement, we discussed in our conversations with Stan Powell, and one proposal was that most applicants would submit the data necessary to conduct a material injury analysis at the time of applying for a storage agreement, which would include point of extraction, rate of extraction, means of extraction, quantity, et cetera. The material injury analysis would occur at that time when the storage agreement is presumably approved, and then the applicant would be permitted to extract the stored water thereafter, so long as it occurred within the parameters that were presented for the purposes of the material injury analysis. So those three topics, the scope of any material injury analysis, whether a material injury analysis should occur, and when the material injury analysis should occur, I think are issues that should be addressed upfront in order for General Counsel to have some direction to come back with a revised template and some suggestions in the memo at the January meeting. And hopefully I articulated what direction we are suggesting might be a path forward after this initial discussions with Mr. Powell. But we would let the board have some discussion and give us direction on which way you would like to head on those topics or others. There are other topics that are addressed in our memorandum and Stan's memo as well. But I'll leave it there because that's a lot to chew on.
Questions, comments?
This is Arden. I'll just add that Cameron characterized our discussion correctly. Material injury analysis for the storage agreements would look at local impacts and not consider overall overdraft.
Thank you, Arden. That's helpful. Okay, comments?
So I just had a question. I know that you referenced quite a bit that you spoke with Mr. Stan Powell, but there were also other comments that you referenced associated with the advisory committee and comments provided by the LA County Waterworks District. So can you speak to whether you're making recommendations to us in accordance with those comments as well?
We received the public water suppliers comments, I think, on Friday, so we haven't had a chance to really discuss with them ahead of today's meeting, but welcome input from the public water suppliers representative and the rest of the directors on the concept that's articulated in that memorandum.
I have a comment on that. Caroline, I think memo that came from Waterworks, I would like to hear what the advisory committee is going to respond to it. Our timing on this is, Craig?
End of the year, next.
Yeah, so we've done a whole lot of work to get to where we're at. I think we all recognize this was going to take a lot of consensus building to get to what the final product's going to be. And so and a lot of work has been done already. So as the chair, I appreciate where we're at right now, that we're exchanging a lot of views, a lot of thoughts. And obviously, at the end of the day, like every decision we made, it's going to take 5 of our votes to come up with the policy. And my goal is to keep working through, and I've been listening to the advisory committee each meeting when they're discussing this, which has been real helpful to educate me. So my goal is, around April or May, we're at a point where we are closing in on a decision that all 5 of us can agree on. And if not, then, the other, and it so far has not happened yet with the board, then maybe the judge has to make the final decision. But I'm pretty hopeful and optimistic right now that the 5 of us and with our alternates can come to something that makes sense, protects the basin, and works for everybody.
I guess, Chair, I was trying to clarify exactly the question that council's putting before us. And so, and maybe I misunderstood it, but I understood that the council wants us to, and you outlined 3 different things, maybe. The fact that the consideration right now is comments associated with how material injuries could be done, and that talked about, considering local impacts. Then you went on to talk about the question of whether material injury is even necessary or not, and then if it is, when. And so I just wanted to make sure that we were on the same page about what the discussion is going to be today and what is being asked of council. So did I paraphrase that correctly?
You did, and Craig can correct me if he disagrees. I think the fundamental question, because I read the public water suppliers memo as essentially saying no material injury analysis is necessary, at least for the public water suppliers version of the storage agreement, unless that's, the engineer determines that there might be material injuries. So maybe that's
a new point of extraction.
or a new point of extraction.
So I think that's a very important point.
Right.
No?
That's maybe the fundamental question worth discussing at the beginning amongst the board members.
Dennis, come on up. Good timing.
Just wanted to add one other point of consideration that came up in our November meeting and then again last week is the priority of use of the stored carryover.
Right.
Yeah,
That's a good
we're
point.
aware of that.
That's also one of the other important topics of discussion that so we articulated in the general counsel memo that there's nothing in the judgment necessarily supporting that priority of use that was articulated in the last point of our general counsel memorandum. It was a suggestion, and the engineer also had input on that suggestion, but there would need to be consensus from the board to try to impose some sort of priority of use requirement ahead of extraction of stored carryover.
Dennis, stay there for a minute, or actually Julie's coming up. I think at the advisory committee, I think Julie brought this point up, so it's a good point to have this discussion. Go ahead.
Well, I don't see how we are going to get to a situation where we can have consensus if we're not all in the room talking about this. As the going back and forth, we had so many different questions and they didn't get addressed, right?
Well, there hasn't been a response.
Right.
Right.
And so what is the likelihood of us all getting into a room and hashing this out?
Yeah, what you're asking for is maybe a study session with advisory committee, the board.
Absolutely.
And just focus on this item, maybe a special meeting to do that. I think I always like to have as many people that are involved build a consensus. And I think, our history is such that we've been able to do that in a way that from the very beginning days before we had the judgment, we had started doing those meetings and they worked out really well. So I think I certainly would be open. What's the rest of the board's?
Derek, what do you think about?
Yeah, I know I've made some comments on ad hoc. And this isn't to that's cast a shadow or cast a complaint on anything, but I think to Julie's point, it's unfortunate, but based upon what we're seeing today and letters we've received, that I think that may have not been a productive use of time or trying to get to the end of 2026 and see if we can get consensus on this. So I think the more open these conversations are, the more communicative are, and the more public they are, the faster we can see if we get to resolution.
Yeah. And I'll just push back a little bit. I think the ad hoc got us to this point, and the plan all along was to kind of get it to bite size.
So that would be my comment too, Director Urasic, that I think that it is beneficial that council was able to put out a draft. And I think, and the reason why I think so, and it's not to say that I don't feel that discussion in a larger group is critical, but I do think that it's very difficult to continually ask questions without something formulated. Oftentimes, it does require an iterative approach and an ability to see something on paper in order to comment or react to it. I don't think it was ever presumed that the ad hoc committee would solve all of the issues, but at least provide a launching point for us to continue the conversation. So I personally think that it was worthwhile.
I'll just push back on that, just saying that I don't think we're any further than we were before the ad hoc started, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure that this is nothing against council, but I think the position of council is very similar at the beginning of the ad hoc is today. Now we've gotten briefs from other lawyers, board members and different public agencies that are, wanting to change that, in my opinion. So that's the concern that I have. We could have hammered this out in public. We could have prepared for it. And now, we haven't had a chance for the advisory committee to hear those statements, positions, as well as, other board members until today.
But the question that I have in hearing this is, it's our job and our duty to sit here and enforce the judgment. We've got a legal question on whether or not a material injury analysis is required. I haven't heard an answer one way or another from you guys. We've got this judgment definitely does have parts that are ambiguous on it, and if there's a difference of opinion on what the judgment says in regards to that, we're going to count on you guys for your interpretation. And if we can't get, or this is my opinion, and if you can't get legal counsel's definitive answer on a specific part of the judgment, then you can get the judge involved and ask him to weigh in on that as well. I mean, the way that's worded for the material injury analysis in the judgment, I mean, it doesn't specifically say that you're supposed to have it, but it says that you're supposed to ensure that no harm occurs to neighboring properties, which would, in my opinion, kind of leads you, okay, well, how do you do that? You have to do it through material injury analysis. So that's a legal question right there that I know I don't have the education and basis to sit there and make a definitive answer on that. That's why I count on you guys for that. So you guys are sitting here asking me to interpret a legal document. I've got a legal team that's here to do that for me. So I want to hear an answer from you guys if it's required or not. If you guys can't come up with an answer on that, then my opinion is we should ask them to go to the judge and come up with an answer on that.
And Brandon, I agree with that. I mean, everything that I read in the judgment indicates that we have to do that.
Indicates that we have to.
We have to do a material injury.
Yeah.
In recovering that water. That, in my mind, that's exactly where I go to.
And that's why I'm referring to the process.
And then let's say at our workshop that we had, Matt Vickery had a fantastic point. If you're using the water, let's say a farmer, because that's the point, that's where that's where we're coming from. So if you're using those wells in a like manner and you're not drilling a new well, you're not exceeding, you're not over pumping, that's a different to us. That's possibly a different type of material injury, but it still has to be considered, correct?
Yeah,
So I would suggest that the material injury's already been considered in that case. So I think maybe we can find consensus that material injury is necessary, but I think, public water suppliers and perhaps, landowners as well will need to discuss what that material injury consists of. Back to council's point regarding the question of whether material injury is necessary or not, and then if so, when that needs to be done and I think that is one of the points that is being made, is that if you are using an existing well, have been using that existing well, has material injury already been considered? And I think that's one of the questions that perhaps, to Director Calandri's point, needs to be addressed by council.
at the end of the day, I'm not looking for a little blanket of comfort that you get at the end of the day is your legal team and engineer saying what you guys are doing is appropriate per the judgment, and that's it.
And you're right, Brandon, it's not an individual or an entity being separated out. We are not unique in this situation. It's blanket. We all need to be treated the same way. Correct?
And it's stated clearly in the judgment that that's the case.
Yes, it is.
18.5.14, they're to be uniformly applicable.
All of us.
So I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Arden, go ahead, Derek.
Can I just make one more comment? So I do agree, there should be no prioritization in this. And I would say that, just to clarify, I think what Brandon said is the priority of how to do this analysis should be legal first, of what the judgment says. And that should be then given to the engineer to say, hey, how do, legally it enforces the judgment, and then how do I engineer and manage it so there's no material injury and it's, beneficial to the base.
Agree. Does that answer some of your questions, Cameron?
I agree with a lot of what we just discussed.
I'm going to throw a little fuel on the fire. Not a lot. Since we were formed, and I think what the judgment does is to protect this basin and protect the basin for all the future people who are going to be here. And I think where we're at right now, this group and the public and the advisory committee, we've really put that as foremost. What's most important is that we keep this aquifer, one of the most pristine aquifers there is, and that it continues to go in for generations and generations in a healthy manner. So when we're talking about what we're doing with storage of carryover, we need to isolate what the problem is. I think from what I've heard, and I could be wrong, and Arden, I'm going to ask you to summarize it a lot better than me, but we know we have a lot of carryover in the basin. We know there's certain areas where we have issues with our basin that we're trying to rectify, mainly the central subbasin. And I think what kind of perked my ears up is Arden's view that if we have a 3, 4, 5 year drought and we pump all that carryover out within that period of time, we're going to cause a huge harm to our basin. If that's the issue, let's talk about that issue and how we correct that. And I think we can brainstorm many ways. Can we move some of this carryover to be pumped in other areas of the basin where we don't have a problem? Can we work with the public water suppliers and AVAC? We've been working really well together to put our infrastructures together that eventually we can rectify a lot of those problems, and we should talk about that. But now I'll stop. Arden, you heard what I said. Can you comment on that? And am I close to the issue, or did I miss it completely?
Yeah, I think that echoing our concern that, there's a lot of carryover that we have right now, and there could be big issues beyond just overdraft if, all or a large portion of that carryover is used in a short period. A lot of pumping in areas that are prone to subsidence is an irreversible problem if significant subsidence starts to occur again. And so right now we're in a position where we've been using less than the production rights in the judgment. And we don't know exactly what would happen to water levels in subsidence, even if all of the parties were using their full production rights. And so introducing the potential for more water on top of just the 10-year carryover, it does mean that it's important to step back and look at, well, what could potential consequences of using this water be? We also need to be careful with the carryovers reviews. Is the use of carryover water in storage going to in any way limit the production rights, the full production rights that can be used by parties to the judgment? That's sort of a philosophical question that I was wrestling with in the discussions around the order of carryover that's used. But there could be an approach where if material injury analyses are conducted for the use of water in storage, and as there are more new points of extraction that also have material injury analyses evaluated, that, we can sort of evaluate as changes occur with pumping in the basin of what potential impacts could be. But there is caution that needs to be taken, and that's the purpose for the material injury analysis. When there's big changes in pumping in the basin, we want to be sure that it's not going to exacerbate subsidence or really negatively impact a neighbor's well.
Rob, would you mind if I add? I agree with Rob. I think one of the parts of that too is, instead of, and I'm not saying, Rob, you're asking for theoretical, or Arden, you're saying theoretical, but what physically can be done as well, right? So I think, there is this thought that maybe, if everybody goes to the well, pun intended, that we could extract all this extra and create this, massive. But my question is what physically can be done without new wells being put in and additional? I think that will help mitigate some of these concerns.
Well, I mean, Derek, my thought on that is too, it's, as you and I both know, some of the biggest pumping wells in the valley are ag wells. And ag's all but almost been eliminated here. So with the ag wells being offline, that's really going to hinder the ability for any mass pumping event. But it'd be nice to know.
So what I see here in the advisory committee comments regarding this, what I think they're very concerned about is that if they're too stringent, like it's saying here, of requirements or limits, which that would lead an unwanted rush to pump to avoid the loss of production rights. We have to find a really good way to balance all this and, make people feel like they don't have to rush to do something because they're going to lose it. We have to make sure that we're hearing them and we can assure them, by the process of everything that we're doing, that we are keeping everyone on that level playing field and everybody matters.
I agree, Kathy. I think what we need to acknowledge here is that the judgment the physical solution in the judgment calls for flexibility in incentivizing management. So the judgment actually put this in here so that we could have this opportunity, that people could allow the basin. This Watermaster and everyone in the valley has done that work over the last 10 years to replenish the basin. I think now, to your point, Kathy, we just have to be careful not to de-incentivize that and to have people rush to the well, back to the money.
Yeah, I think this has been a real good discussion. I think our next step should be, and if we can get consensus and help me get there, is to have a special meeting on the topic. I think you have enough information right now to redraft the memo based upon our discussions and what the advisory committee has done, and maybe get that out as soon as possible to the advisory committee. And then let's work on setting a special meeting date where we can, as a whole, invite everybody to, as a study session, to discuss it less formally than a meeting. I will conduct it like a meeting, but I will give everybody, a chance to talk about this. And Arden, I think it's important, we'll have you start out that discussion, but start the discussion with what the problem is, because there's not any member on this board that wants this basin to be harmed and overdraft and to a point where it doesn't exist in the way it is right now for future generations. Keith, come on up.
For the Public Water Entities Steering Committee, I've got a suggestion to make. If the board is going in the direction of a special meeting, I think it would be helpful for our group if we identify the issues to be discussed so we can talk about it at our group and kind of make sure we've got a consensus coming in. I think Council mentioned 3 issues. Dennis mentioned another one, which is priority of use. If there are other issues, I think somebody alluded to additional issues. So if there are other issues, it would be good to know, maybe have an issues list, and then we can come in and kind of work down the issues list.
I think that's a great idea, Keith. And maybe what we do is for our January meeting, have another relatively short discussion, which this has been, on refining what the issues are and what issues we believe need to be discussed in the special meeting. And then let's, at our next meeting, set a special meeting date if we've refined those issues. Would that sound reasonable? And I think every one of us needs to come here with what we believe the issues are, but Arden and Craig and Angel, for sure, you guys need to brainstorm and maybe have, you've heard all this conversation. I think we got it all out today, but let's, what Keith said, let's have an issue list that will be discussed, that can be discussed at advisory committees, at the public water supplier committees, at the landowner groups, and with AVAC, and refine it down. And then let's get to the bottom of it. And again, I'm very optimistic that this board's going to be able to come up with the right procedures to protect the basin. And Patty's waving me off. But
Stan Powell has a comment.
But before we go to that comment, though, I'd like to opine on what you suggested. So I'm still not clear, Mr. Chair, because I think back to Director Yurosic's point about how to be productive and move ahead. I think that what I'm hearing is that we need to, and the idea about putting forth a list of ideas and having that discussion is important, but I do think that we need to understand what we're asking of specifically council and what we're asking of staff, because I heard very distinctly that from Director Calandri that we need some kind of maybe response or opinion based on what's been provided. Maybe not a response letter to every single letter that was brought in, but some kind of response that the board and the other committees can consider regarding a legal opinion, and then also if we think necessary, the engineer's perspective. I think those are important for us to continue to have production, because I don't really see the difference when we come back in January of having kind of a light meeting. I guess I'm confused as to what the proposal is and what we're asking of staff.
So this is where I think we're at, Carolina, that I think we have consensus. We all want to have a special meeting on this issue. I think we want to make that special meeting as productive as possible. I think we have to narrow what our issues are and start out with the consensus that we're all here to protect the basin. And then refine, and that's why I had that discussion with Arden. As the water master engineer, her number one priority is protect this basin. And she's trying to give us some suggestions how to do that. And then get into our carryover storage agreement and come up with policy that does that. But I don't know, I don't know what that's going to consist of yet. From listening to everybody and listening to advisory committee, I think there's going to be a way we're going to get aligned. I think it's counterproductive for us to, take this to the judge. I think we have more knowledge at this point and more experience on how to do this. And let's see if we can form a consensus and get the very best policy we can to protect the basin, period.
Okay, so how does that translate onto what's on the agenda in our January meeting?
Oh, January meeting?
I think that's what I'm asking.
Cameron, will you?
I could try to provide a little bit of clarity to the confusion I think that has been articulated, and to answer some of the director's questions and the comments about what are the issues to be addressed at a special meeting if it is called. I see 6 issues. The number one, which I articulated earlier, is whether a material injury analysis is appropriate for carryover storage agreements. And to answer the questions from some of the directors, Watermaster General Counsel's opinion is yes, that is required under the judgment. I apologize if that wasn't clear. That was kind of the, at least insinuated in the memorandum in the template. But that's still a question that's clearly being debated by other counsel. But Watermaster General Counsel's opinion is yes, that's required. So that's one.
In all cases, just for clarity? Are you talking about an existing points of extraction or in new points of extraction or both?
Right, both. And then I think the other questions get into that in more detail. The second is how should the material injury analysis be conducted, which is in part a legal question, but also a hydrogeologic question that has been asked of the engineer to answer. And that relates to whether and to what extent overdraft, broader long-term overdraft considerations are included. And I'll defer an answer to that to the upcoming engineer's presentation on MI material injury criteria. Third, and now we're getting into more details with respect to the storage agreement itself. When should material injury analysis occur? And there have been differing views, and I think it can be worked out different ways, and that's something that should be discussed. I articulated one option at the beginning of this presentation. 4 is the priority of use issue, which is related but not intrinsically related to the storage agreement, but something that needs to be discussed.
Is there anywhere in the judgment that you're basing that on? Do we have a?
No.
Okay.
No, that was more of a suggestion for consideration, but that can be addressed. There were 2 other topics that were addressed in our memorandum, and I think at least Dan Powell's and also the advisory committee's memo that we didn't get into today because they're more administrative in nature, but I would just add those other 2 to the list. Number 5 is the process administratively for subsequent years of aging carryover being added to a storage agreement. That was identified in our memo. I think Stan Powell had a suggestion, but that is more granular in nature than these bigger questions. And then 6 is the imposition of fees for entering into storage agreements or subsequent actions pursuant to storage agreements, which again is more granular in nature. But to answer the question about what the topics would be, I would see those as the main 6 in order of priority. And
Is there a
hopefully,
consideration for emergency water use that you're bringing forward?
we have not presented a consideration for that, but something to potentially be discussed at a special meeting.
Carolina, could you elaborate a little bit?
Well, for example, one of the points that, you know, for public water suppliers is that, you know, if there is a drought, we have for public health and safety, we're required to provide water. And there is no assessment or anything we can do if we're not providing water at the tap. Whereas in other instances, there's some kind of monetary value associated with those damages, right? If somebody else's well, for example, goes dry, that's maybe using it to grow a crop. Whereas for public water suppliers, we have to provide water to the tap. It's a health and safety issue. And so I'm wondering if those emergency considerations are being considered.
Good, very good point. Because that's the essence of what we're talking about, right? Is how could we get to the point where this could be cause a material injury by using this carryover, and that's probably where we're going to get to it.
I think Stan Powell still has his hand raised.
Okay. Stan, you've been very patient. Go ahead, give us your quickest, best summary.
Yeah, though Craig indicated I can be long-winded and dense. I wanted
He
to
didn't
be
say that, Stan.
a little more superficial, perhaps, but I do have continuing concerns about the process that we use to evaluate this at the Watermaster. Rob, you had mentioned the history, and I guess as I've been listening to this discussion, I was remembering the beginning of the Watermaster, where we weren't fully staffed. We would have 4 or 5 hour Watermaster meetings. We would have much more conflict on the advisory committee. And while I think we've improved many things, I think an issue like this is not going to get resolved without conflict. And I'm actually encouraged over the last 1 to 2 months that I think the process has improved. Prior to this, I don't think we were having a very good discussion, a very complete discussion by all parties. It may be frustrating for the Watermaster to start seeing multi-page letters and memos coming in that are detailed to an extent that many probably don't want to review. But I think that those are the things that are going to help us have processes that let us get this done. And Rob, I appreciate your comments that let's try and work this process and see if we can resolve this without going off to the court. And I think it's going to be challenging. I think your schedule going out 5 or 6 months is probably a realistic one. But I think we're closer on the beam now. I think the public discussion had today is a sign of that improvement. So I guess that's what I wanted to say. I feel like the Watermaster suggestions today are going down the right path, and I'm happy to see them. Thank you.
Great.
And we do not want to discourage you from sending in your comments. We appreciate them as well as we did with District 40s and everybody's. We want to hear from the more engagement from everybody, the better.
So maybe there is still a chance for me to win some kind of award, maybe a Pulitzer.
We're working on it.
But yes, I do appreciate everyone's like input and being able to read and really like think where others are coming from as opposed to just where I'm coming from. And I'm glad that you feel that this has been a productive thing and we are moving towards doing this. Because I think we can. We know it's going to be difficult, but we've got to make sure everyone feels like they can have their say.
Okay,
Yeah, I'd like to quickly respond to that.
Go ahead, Stan.
Because I did not make an introductory comment I often make. What I'm saying here is frank, but it may come off as criticism. I do not mean to criticize the Watermaster, its staff, other committee members. I just think this is the way the process has to work. And so my comments are not intended to be critical about the way we've proceeded today. This is really complicated and we're working our way through it. And it feels like on this call that everyone's taken a reasonable attitude towards that.
Okay, and Stan, I'll just add to that. I have, watched you for about 10 years now. I have never seen you do anything but be respectful of the process and add, comments and help educate us, which is really important. So let me try to bring this to a conclusion. Cameron, I think the issues you put forth are getting to the bottom of it. I think Carolina's issue has to be, if we get to the point for the health and safety of our citizens, we'll get to that point, and how do we look at that? At least we should be aware of that question before we are in that emergency. And this is kind of a good place to tie this in. And I think Cameron and Craig, you're going to redraft your memo this time. You'll work again with Art and Angel, and you came out with a pretty good list. I think we've added to it. Let the advisory committee weigh in on that. And then at our January meeting, we will look at those issues we want to bring forth in a special meeting. We'll see. And we can probably just go down a list at that point, have a special meeting, have a discussion about it, see if we can reach consensus on the different areas. Again, I'm very optimistic that we will. If we can't, we know what the alternative is. Everybody good? And that'll give the advisory committee a chance to look at the waterworks memo and what?
Just one more bridge. It might be a good idea to have the material injury workshop somewhere before the special meeting.
Yeah, I was planning on that. So in January, we're going to schedule that, and then we'll schedule the special meeting. I think that's an excellent idea. Okay, anything else we need to do? Okay, that brings us to board members' requests for future agenda items. I think we've been putting a lot on. So I don't think we need to add any more to that, but if anybody wants to, you can. And if not, is there a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Well, Kathy, second
I'll
by
second,
Carolina.
yeah.
Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of going into closed session, say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carried unanimously. Thank you all for joining us. If you're not going to be here when we come out of closed session, I don't think there's any exciting stuff coming out of closed session, but you never know. So thank you. Happy holidays, everybody.
Yes.
We'll see you in January.
It's gonna be wild and crazy in here.
Recording stopped.